survey, what we found was that what we call research with students, they may not perceive it as such. So that's one of the reasons that we're addressing this. And it's also in those digital learning competencies. Have you heard about those yet? Okay, so in the digital learning competencies, which are embedded in your standards, and it's going to make you an even better teacher because they pull them out separate so they're a little more defined. But anyway, so with those digital learning competencies, these are some of the things that you'll be able to hit in the standards in your teaching rubric. So if you look at these pictures, what do you notice?
It's just a difference in expectations because of how early they're exposed to technology.
Yes.
Like, for instance, my nephew, he'll be 3 next month, and he knows how to work the basic parts of a touchscreen cell phone and an iPad. He can recognize certain apps to be able to get to the ones he uses the most, and he's barely 3.
Yeah, exactly. They can navigate a website, a device. They are great at that. And if we're looking at these 9 facts about digital natives, because that's what they are. Remember when I first started teaching, we had a whole bunch of professional development on these kids that were coming to us that knew how to use devices, and we didn't know how to do anything. Mm-hmm. So that was a big learning curve for us. How do you reach them? But still, how does that impact your instruction today? How does that impact your instruction?
You have to be able to meet them where they are. Like, for one, they are more able to multitask, mm-hmm. I feel, than we are because they've been exposed to the technology.
Yes.
Like, for instance, I'm a terrible multitasker. So, if like more than one child is trying to talk to me at once, I almost lose it. I'm like, no, stop. Okay, you. And now you. But they can actually hear multiple conversations, and they'll be talking to one student, and then they'll try to say something to the other one that was talking, and then go right back like nothing ever happened. Mm-hmm. So even though that has nothing to do with the technology, just being exposed to it and the fact that they're playing video games and things like that has that effect on them.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Also, we've looked at the different levels of rigor. I forget the acronym, that Kelly shared with us.
It was SAMR.
The SAMR model. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I mean, so just word processing or all that—that's just basic. That's not enough. I mean, they already know how to do that. So if we think we're competent because we're letting them do a little bit of this or that on the laptops, that's not really using technology the way we need to use it in the 21st century.
So that's where we have to teach them and know how to use it. And like you said, just because that they know how to navigate everything and work everything does not mean that they are proficient in what they're doing and that they're doing it for the right purposes. For me, it was a struggle. Because I would ask students, and I know that you'll probably get the same thing. They would come in, do their stuff, put it on the paper, and I was like, great, this is great. Where did you get this picture from? Google Images? Or Google? I'm like, Google just gathers information, and they could not understand that Google was not the website and everything. Where did you get this? Google. And so it was a struggle for them to go deeper and to look. And the bigger struggle for me, and I don't know about you, was trying to get them to not copy and summarize what they've done. Am I hitting home anywhere? I mean, we talked about, there was a great book out there, and I know that y'all are middle school, but it's called Hi, I'm Orc, or something like that. But we talk about caveman speak, where you take your notes in caveman speak. You don't have to put everything down. And I preached that for I don't know how long until they finally seemed to get it. But then having them take their caveman speak and put it into sentences was the next challenge. Mm-hmm. So are y'all feeling me right now? Because I was frustrated about that. So we're not gonna look at this right now, but if you read this quote, this does not surprise me at all. This is a nice little video that will take them through to see how Google works. But when we think about that, and this is the point you brought up, does research equal Googling? And how many of your students look past those paid things right there in the yellow or whatever box that they put that in? It's right there in front of them, and they click on that because they're not evaluating what they're doing, and we know that. So we know that research is not about a subject. It is not about a summary of everything you find. It is not just gathering information. It is research. There's a difference between research and reporting. What research does is you're trying to find out information. You're trying to form an opinion. You're trying to create new knowledge. And that's what you're trying to do. Reporting is just a gathering of information. And I think sometimes we get those two confused. I know that I did. Kids would send, teachers would send them and say, we're doing a research on the acts the Stamp Act, or, these acts that they study the Revolutionary War. Intense. If you did not know this in 5th grade, they go over all that like nobody's business. So those kids should know that when they come to you. Or when they talk about organ systems, they research those and what they do. But they wasn't true research because they weren't asking a question. They weren't creating new knowledge about it. All they were doing was gathering information and presenting it. Does that have its place, though? Yes, it does. But it's not true research. So I love this right here. The purpose, question. This has a clear, arguable thesis. And a report is just general discussion. So this was kind of an aha for me. I knew what research was supposed to be. I knew we weren't doing it right, but I could not convince people of the difference in it. And it's not the easiest to implement because you're going to have to come up with a question. Your students are going to have to come up with a question they're interested in or that drives them, something that applies to their daily lives, that it's authentic. And that is what's going to spark the true research for them to find out. So that's the difference in research and reporting. Does anyone disagree with these statements?
This makes me, we're really focused on anchor charts now, and this really lends itself to that, it seems like. Before we can ask them to do research, they need to know what it is and what are the steps involved to doing that research. Mm-hmm. That in itself is a lesson of...
Yes, and it's going to be a mind shift. I mean, it's going to be something for them because they've probably not really been asked to do that at a rigorous level yet. I know that coming from the elementary that feeds up, they weren't. And I know when I taught middle school, what I asked them to do was not as rigorous as what I wanted them to do. So I'm guilty of that too. So this is why they need it. This is exactly why they need it. You ever heard of zombie ants? There is a lot of information out there that looks like that to make people think that something is true or valid. Do you think it's true or false?
I'm guessing it's false, but just looking at that graphic, I would assume it was true.
Yes. And it is true.
Oh, it is.
They really are. There's something about the fungus that they get into the ants and they turn, I don't know. I started reading about it and I was like, my brain is just not there. So, yes, that one is true. But this is a good way to start this conversation with your students. Oh, yeah, go ahead. It's not bringing up stuff like this. Have y'all heard about the I think it's called the Pacific tree octopus?
No.
Okay, that's one, and it is on the links in here if you want to make a copy of it and look at it. It is a website that looks very valid, but when you go in, you know it's not. But it's a good way, it would be a good question to have your students look at that and find out and see if it's true or not. And obviously the tree octopus is not, but you wouldn't think that zombie ants are. So why do we need this? These are the things that our students need. First, check your sources. Do they do that? No, they don't. Do they ask good questions?
Why do we have to do this?
Yes, exactly.
And I think like a lot of the questions they ask too, it's the way that they ask it. It's like they'll ask you a question and they expect you to give them the answer. Like
Yes.
the way that
Well,
they
Google
ask
gives
it.
them the answer, right?
Yes, and see, and that's what
I'm
they're.
saying. I mean, I'm just
Yes,
playing
and
devil's advocate because I'm a math teacher, so.
no, I get it.
But any like parenting issue I'm currently having, you know, I Google it.
Yes.
But I feel like I'm wise enough to know that I have to do more than just accept the first link. You know,
Right.
Because anybody can put anything out there. But I guess our students don't realize that.
And you know what? With what you're saying, here's the link right here.
Oh, thank you.
What you're saying is like totally true. Like, but there is a place for that because do our students need to access information quickly? Yes. But if it is a yes or no or can be answered by Googling, it's not a good question. So that's the part that is the most difficult is getting them to ask those questions. So instead of, and I'm trying to think of I go to ethics when I go to science, you know, we can always look up and see what cloning is, right? But what are, how will, I'm trying to put this in a way of where they have to bring it back to themselves, where they make it relevant. What will happen if,
Designer babies.
thank you.
Yeah,
I couldn't
we
think of
we
it.
already covered it.
Okay, so you did.
Yep.
So yes, like, what is that? What's going to happen? What are some problems that I could face when I am having, you know, children? What are those things? And of course, they ask, especially when you get into genetics and all that. Yes, I'm like, that's that's a question for mom and dad. But but you have to ask it where it's like relevant to them and real world and not a yes or no questions. And that is not easy to do. I am not going to lie. It is not easy to do. And it takes a while to get that out of them.
And I'm sorry, I know I just got in here, but
No.
can you build that in the assignment so it starts with that yes or no
Yes.
though? Because like
Yes.
today, the kids that are staying behind, we're going over the spill at the dam in California.
Right.
And I'm having them write a 3-paragraph essay. The first question was explain hydropower. So that's kind of a yes or no. I could Google that.
Yes.
But then they go into explain the exact situation going on. And then the third part is find a possible solution to the issue.
Right.
So can the assignment build like that?
Yes. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
When you say, what solutions can we find for this problem? When we're talking about the difference between researching and reporting, you are going to have to start with they are going to have to pull in some facts because it should be new knowledge and they should try to have to convince someone of why, you know, how did they come up with this information? So they're going to have to support what their presentation, what they're trying to do. So it is going to have to incorporate those. So those are some good guiding questions that they're going to have to answer through that. So can you scaffold this? Absolutely. You're going to have to when you start out. I not ever taught a research thing that I did not have to scaffold because that's part of it is when they start doing things, you're more like the facilitator where you're going to have to say, check that out again. Let's go back. Can we do this? It's okay because they have to have that guidance to know whether they're going in the right direction or not. And that's what you're there for. So yes, that is it. And that brings us to this one. Be patient because it is. It's time consuming, but it's worth it because you take in so many standards and so many skills. So, yeah. How do you do that? Do your students know how to do that right now? No. They don't. I mean, I had one group that I worked with all year long, and they finally were trained to look at those things. But unless they're done like on a consistent basis, it's a little difficult. So that's one of the things that we need to do. And how do you evaluate a website? Well, there it is right there. So a good thing to have is a checklist for them to do, and that could be you could do that in anything like digitally if you want to. You can do it on paper. It really doesn't matter. But a checklist is really nice. Now, what I found is it's kind of sometimes a little difficult to get a checklist that's short enough that they'll actually use. So that's one of the things that you're gonna want to look for in the presentation and the notes. There is. How many of you have followed Kathy Schrock or heard of Kathy Schrock before?
Heard of her.
Yeah, she is the there's the website if y'all want it. Sorry. She's like the guru to everything, and she has Kathy Schrock's guides to everything, and one of them is evaluating websites. So she does have a lot of information out there, and some things that you can go ahead and templates that you could use. But it is like a PDF fillable one that you can fill out. But it might be good to go through this because once they learn what good websites are, they're going to know what to look for each time. So. And here are, when we're talking about these, all of these things that we're presenting today are in the Information and Technology Standards, the North Carolina Information and Technology Standards. And they are vertical alignments right here for you. And these are the three main categories. So when you're talking about research, it's going to incorporate all of these right here. Because that's what you're going to need to know. You want to know the source of information, different ways of getting it, where is it? And evaluating that and getting it through technology and organizing through technology. And, of course, the research process. So you can take a look at that to know what they have to know before they get to you, what they should know before they get to you, and what they need to know when they leave you. And I'm going to just go through this. We have not really had a research model in our district, like one that we've adopted. Do y'all have one at your school? A research model? Okay. Well, this is one. It's called the Big Six. It's very heavily researched, and there is a website information on it. A website with information on it, and there are lessons that it incorporates, and there are PowerPoints and things like that to teach this research model. And basically, you can look at it and see what it is. It's very simple. You're defining your tasks. What are you going to use to look for? What kind of sites are you going to use? Websites? Are you going to use databases? What are you going to need to search? What types of resources are you going to need? Then finding and accessing those resources and pulling out the information. Synthesis is where they take it and organize and communicate and put it all together. And then evaluation is something they go through on their checklist. Did it fit my rubric? So this is a research model, and this is how technology is incorporated with it. And this is kind of, when I looked at one that they had in 2010, and it looked much different. The technology looked much different than the one that I have up here. So this one is mostly used in social media, a lot of social media to do this. So the students are going to identify their tasks, what they have to do, probably talking with each other through Twitter, Instagram. You know, they do those things. They talk about what they're going to have to do. They can do it through your classroom, through collaboration, because I think some of the standards is doing a research product on their own, but also doing it as a group. And I cannot remember which grade level that was for, but I know it was at the middle school level. And so how are we going to look for information? Would we think blogs or Twitter are good websites, are good things to get information from? But they may be. I know that sounds weird.
Depends on who,
I know that sounds
created
weird. But they have to know, where's this blog from? Where did they get their information from? It goes back to evaluating your sources. That's the whole thing. Twitter.
What the bias is.
Yes.
Etc.
Yes. Who's tweeting it? They could, it is really true. Location and access. Where are they really probably going to try to go first? Absolutely. And use of information. Where are they going to put their notes? How are they going to do that? Blogs is good. Do y'all use Evernote?
I use it on my phone.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really neat. It is a Chrome app and an extension. They have something called a web clipper that if they find something, they can click it and it puts it in their notes, and so they can visit it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really nice. It's a nice thing to use, and it's like a virtual notebook for them to keep their information in. So then how are they going to present it? And this is their evaluation. Which, are they very good at evaluating?
That's exactly.
No.
Do they go back and say, hey, does my answer match my question?
Not usually.
No. And again, I go back to that one that says be patient, because it is one of those things that is difficult to teach. I found it difficult to teach because they didn't want to go back and look at it. A lot of times I would say, okay, did you have someone else read this? Did you peer review this with one of your friends, one of your classmates? Yep. Okay, good. I was like, phew, that's a check in the box. But I never really went back sometimes, and I was totally guilty of it, of doing evaluating like I should. Then I'm not going to show you this video, but this is one that you can show them on the Big Six in your classroom. So now we're at the research tools. How do we research? Have you been to the new NC Wise Owl? Okay.
We went with Kelly Williamson. She showed it to us.
Did she? Yeah. It's really NC Wise Owl is really neat. You have to know where to look. There's one called Middle School Search in there. That it's more of their types of articles to get, and a lot of it is the ones that come from like Time for Kids, Sports Illustrated. It comes from Scholastic, the old weekly readers, but it does have a lot of other information in journals there too. So that's one to do. So these are some that you can look at. These are different types of search engines right here that are alternatives to Google. There are some here. Sweet Search is. American Memory, that is going to be your primary sources. Do you have a focus on primary sources with the Common Core now too? At this level, just like it is across the board. So those primary sources are something to look at. So here is also a list of databases and search engines that you can go to, and they have like a little annotation of our bibliography, kind of what they annotated bibliography, sort of what they are. So that's something that I'm going to give you some time to check out. But what I did want you to know, these are some visual search engines also.
I've used Instagram.
You have?
I don't remember it though, but yeah, I've used that before.
Yeah.
I had to in college. They had to use. I don't know. I hadn't even heard of it since then. But yeah.
Can you use that picture? Well, here's some things that are some places that you can go. Know that NC Wise Owl, your kids can access that from home. Do you know the password for that? It is Wise Owl 16, and it changes each year. So next year it'll be Wise Owl 17. It's all lowercase, Wise Owl 16. And if you've not checked it out, there are some great things that you are missing. It's not just about Explora. It's not just about that. How many of you, do y'all use Google Classroom? Okay, let me just tell you something about Wise Owl. I'm going to get on my media coordinator kick. Wise Owl has ebooks. Have you ever looked at the ebooks that they have there? There are a lot of information. There are a lot of nonfiction books there. And the great thing about it is they now have the button where you can post it straight to your Google Classroom. They have articles, anything that's in Gale or EBSCO, you can post straight to your Google Classroom for them to read right there. So that's nice if you're trying to have them read for some information, or as you know, sometimes we lack the information or text to be able to teach with. You can find a lot of that there. As a classroom teacher, you can find some great information. So they are reliable. And here's the one thing that you, another thing to remember, and I know I'm talking a lot. There's another thing to remember. It is, y'all talked about the advanced ed, right? And the advanced ed, when they come to do like all the walkthroughs and stuff. Okay, so, and we should be doing this every day, but this really brought it to my mind. When you're using anything with your students, if you give your students an article, tell them where you got it from, why you're using it, why it's valid. Because that's one thing that will get into their mind, that you are presenting and you are getting information for an audience. And it always should be for an audience, whatever you're doing. So if you're doing a video for your classroom, it should be for an audience. So that's one of the things that we need to remember to tell our students, so they'll know that and be able to do that back. Okay. So, and I know I'm digressing. There's NC Wise Owl. If your students log on to SchoolNet, they get the NC Wise Owl right there at the bottom on the left-hand side of their page. It is right there. It used to be EBSCO Search, but they've now changed it to NC Wise Owl. And if not for anything, they have Britannica on there, which is really nice, and it reads to them. Okay, so I know that sometimes that's a big challenge when we're talking about research, because our students need to research at this level, but they don't read there yet. So when you're looking, it's one reason to use NC Wise Owl, because a lot of times when you go through those articles, they have the text there, and they can press play, and it can read it to them. Now, it will not read the ebooks, but it will read Britannica, and it will read the articles that they research that come out in text. It has a read to me function. So that's another good thing. Start with the students. How do you know if a website is good? Look at the domains. Where did it come from? That's a great way to start website evaluation. And that's one that they will remember, because they will think they are so smart. Because they're like, oh, I know that comes from da-da-da-da-da. That's the first thing that they really notice and begin to remember, are the domains. I'm going to skip this really quick. Note that you can search right in Google Docs if you're down here. Have you ever done that? It's a safe search. It's a really great way to have the students search, because you can do it directly into here. So if you hit the Explore button, you can search for whatever it is that you want. And the great thing about it is when the results are returned. Now this one looks a little different. When the results are returned, let me do it over here. Let's just say, somebody give me something, because I cannot think on the fly.
Hydropower.
Hydropower, love it. I'm going to search for hydropower. Here are my results on the webs. Here are my images, and I can even search my Google Drive to see if anyone shared anything with me or anything that I have on here. The great thing about it is when you're here, it may not do it since I'm in slides. Over here, you're going to get like a little citation thing. See, I hate to do that because my computer takes so crying long. This is the next thing we're working on for you, by the way. Okay? And you can see only I've done it, so it's probably terrible. So here I'm going to go. So it's taking everything that I have on here, and it will pull up some things according to what I've typed so far. It is kind of like a smart search. So if I do hydropower, I'm going to come here. I can choose my citation style that I want to do it in. And the great thing about it is if I hit this, cite as footnote, it comes all the way, where'd it go? There it is, right here to the bottom. And I could also drag anything over into here, and it will put it in here and cite it for me. And it does the same thing with the images. So a great thing to do here. And this is the best thing about it is if I click on this, it's going to take me in through a search, through the images, and down here it will tell me what it's used for. If it's used for commercial, I don't know where that's going. If it's used for commercial use, for reuse, do y'all know how to Google search through images like that? Do y'all all know how to Google search for images according to? So if I'm going to Google hydropower here, and it used to do this right in Google Docs. I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, there we go. There's Google. I get excited when I talk. Okay, so if I do this, hydropower, and I could do google.images.com or images.google.com, and it would come straight up. But this is the way I do it because I like to make myself go to 3 or 4 steps. Right here where it says tools, it's filtering by all results verbatim. That's how it does here. But if you go to images and those tools are pulled up, come on. There it goes, tools. I can search by size, color, the type, and like if I wanted to search clip art, this is great when you're doing stuff too. It's really nice. And if I do usage rights, here are my usage rights. So if I can do labeled for non-commercial use with modification, because maybe I want to change and add to this, I can hit that, and it's going to change what's available to me. So that way, that is nice, especially for students to show them that, the difference in the rights, and that's a good conversation about copyright. It's a good conversation about fair use. So, and it's a good way for you to put stuff in yours without having to go out and find it yourself, especially when you search for clip
Can you
art. It's
check
really
for
nice.
time on that one? See if we can find that Oroville Dam. I mean,
That's 24 hours.
yeah, I didn't know we could do that. I usually look on the general search and then try to look at how old it is.
There, the second, that straight down below that.
That's it right there. Huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
So this Google can be an enemy, but you have to know how to manipulate and use it, and it can be great. Take it, do what you want to with this. Is here for you. You can make a copy of it. The videos in there are good for them to see, and the little videos on the Googling tricks and stuff. It's just a nice way for them to be able to get information. So